everyone. Today I have a kind of creepy book haul for you. So let's dive in. So I've got a stack of books sitting right beside me. They're all creepy, mysterious in nature, and I'm very eager to read them all. I was very much spoiled. There's only one book in this pile that I bought myself. I think that was from a gift card. So scratch that. These are all gifts. I have been spoiled. The first two are by publishers. So let's dive right into those. So the first book that I have for you is an ARC. This is coming out on February 2nd. And this is Good Neighbors by Sarah Langan. So this is about a suburb that's very twisted, very screwed up. This is following a group of neighbors who may smile behind their white picket fences, but are actually, they have no good intentions. So this follows a terrible tragedy that happens to a young girl who falls into a sinkhole. The mother naturally is quite upset, and she harnesses all of that anger and puts it all towards one family called the Wilds. They're a family of misfits, and they are accused of somehow being involved in this, and it sets off the entire neighborhood, and the entire neighborhood end up having like this hatred for this family, and there's like mob violence towards them, which is kind of terrifying. So let us read the first line of Good Neighbors and see if it's a 5-star first line. Okay, The Strangers, July 4th, 2027. Oh, it's set in the future. 116 Maple Street, Sunday, July 4th. Is it a party? Are we invited? Larry Wilde asked. That is not a 5-star first line by any stretch of the imagination. No. Is it suddenly darker? It is 10 million years later. Nora woke up from her nap. I had to go and help her out. Had to give her lunch. Had to eat lunch myself. And here we are, back again, probably with lettuce in my teeth. But we're going to continue the book haul. Next up, another scary book, vividly nerve-wracking book that is coming out on March 2nd. It's either coming out in February or March. I can never tell with these kinds of things. The Babysitter. This is a book about a serial killer, a babysitter who was also a serial killer. So it turns out Lisa and her sister spent their summers in Provincetown, and her mother wasn't really around a lot. And so she had a babysitter who just happened to be the handsome handyman at the motel where her mother worked. And he would take care of them during these summers. He seemed kind and fun, and he would bring them often to this like wooded area that he called his secret garden. Turns out, years later, and I mean decades later, she found out that he was a serial killer. And apparently her mother knew for a long time. Listen to this. She asked her mother what she remembered about Tony after like a nightmare that she had about him. Well, I remember he was a serial killer. Her mother replies. And when Liza is like completely shocked, her mother says, yeah, so what? He didn't kill you, did he? First of all, Mother of the Year. Second of all, this sounds amazing. So, Liza's Nightmare. We're going to read the first line, 2005. Close your eyes and count to 10, he whispered. Knowing what this is about, that is a 5-star first line. Close your eyes and count to 10? No, I will not. Thank you very much. That's terrifying. Okay, so those are the books that were kindly sent to me by Simon & Schuster Canada. Thank you guys. I'm terrified already. And now we're going to move right along to basically books that were gifted to me. I have 2 books here that were gifted to me by you guys. Oh my goodness, when these landed on the door, I was so over the moon. I did not expect anything whatsoever. I mostly thought anything coming from Amazon, I was like, oh, it's a gift for Nora or something. But then these came. The first book I want to share with you is a sequel to one of my favorite spooky books called Florence and Giles. This is The Girl Who Couldn't Read. I actually squealed a little bit when this came out of the package because I've wanted to read this for years now. This was sent to me from Crystal. Thank you so much, Crystal. You really, well, you probably have some idea how excited I am, but she wrote, thank you for your great channel from Crystal. The Girl Who Couldn't Read is the sequel to Florence and Giles. And in this book, we follow a doctor in New England in the 1890s. And he is working at an isolated mental asylum. And he finds himself quite intrigued by one patient in particular. She has amnesia and she is fascinated by books, but she can't read them. He begins to have some sort of relationship with her, and in some ways she saves him. I'm so excited. Oh, we need to read the first line. I got too excited. I forgot part of what we do here. The first line of The Girl Who Couldn't Read. Dr. Morgan expects you in his office in 10 minutes. Okay, not a 5-star first line, but oh, I'm expecting good things. Okay, so next is The Stranger Beside Me by Anne Rule. I wanted this for so long, and Medina sent it my way. She has a booktube channel, which I'm going to link below. Her channel name is Melbourne from My, a Bookish Pod. And she's lovely. So she wrote me a little note. She said, I just bought this book as it was recommended by a booktuber that I discovered recently, Katie Coulson. I'm aiming to read it during the break. I think she meant like the Christmas break. I hope you enjoy it as much as Katie did. And I thank you so much because this has been on my radar for so long. It's probably the strangest true crime book in some ways because Anne Rule actually knew Ted Bundy, like she worked with him. And then she found out he was a serial killer. How does that happen? And she went on to have like multiple, best-selling true crime books. And this is all about her personal experience with Ted and what she thought of him and what he did as well. She doesn't shy away from that either. And I am so excited to read this. Okay, preface, 1980. This book began a half dozen years ago as an entirely different work. Not a 5-star first line. Most of the time, nonfiction doesn't end up being 5 stars, if I'm being honest, but that's okay. It's still gonna be so good. Okay, next is a book that I ended up getting myself. I got an Amazon gift card from my boss, which was so sweet. And of course I used it for books. Do you know me? So I picked up The House Next Door by Anne Rivers Siddons. This is a haunted house story that sounds amazing. I first heard about this from Leanne from Literary Diversions. She did a whole video on haunted houses. I'll link that below if I can find it. This is about the neighbors of a haunted house, which is such a brilliant premise for a book. You always just follow the people who live in the haunted house, but what about their neighbors? I think it's brilliant. So in this book, we follow 2 people, a couple who live in Georgia. They're like the epitome of suburbia. They're, content, laying low in life. And then a house is constructed quite close to theirs, and it ends up being haunted because every single person who ends up trying to live in it is destroyed in one way or another. And it sounds great. Okay, so here's the prologue, the first line of the prologue. People like us don't appear in People magazine. It's not a 5-star first line, but it just sounds so brilliant. So there is that. Okay, and 3 more. These were all gifted to me from Barry for Christmas, which is wonderful. The first is actually quite sad in many ways. It's called Leaving Atlanta by Tayari Jones. Ever since reading An American Marriage, I knew I wanted to read more by Tayari Jones. She's a gorgeous writer. And this book is inspired by her own childhood. She grew up in Atlanta as a Black girl. And during this time, there was a serial killer killing off Black children. And he got away with this for way too long. And the only reason that he got away with it for as long as he did was because they were Black children that he was victimizing, because the press, the police force, people just didn't care in the same way that they would if it was white children going missing. So this explores racism, and we follow 3 childhood friends navigating their childhood in this time, in this setting. And they're all Black children, so they must have been horrified. Like, she must have been horrified and so scared at this in her childhood. I don't know. It sounds brilliant. So let us read the first line of Leaving Atlanta. Part 1, Magic Words. Hard, ugly, summer vacation spoiling rain fell for 3 straight months in 1979. I love that. That's a 5-star first line to me. Just the fact that she said summer vacation spoiling rain. Most of the time with a 5-star first line, I need it to like grip me and want me to go into the story because I need to know what's going to happen next. For me, with this case, it's just, it's so well written, and it like immediately makes me think of childhood. Like, oh, beautiful, beautiful writing. Very eager to read that one. The next book that he got me is All the Birds Singing by Evie Wyld. Now, I'm talking about Leanne a lot, but for good reason. I had this on my wish list because of Leanne. This is her favorite book, I think, or one of her very favorite books. So this takes place on a British island. We follow a farmer whose sheep are being killed off one by one. I think at first she might think that it was like a wolf or something along those lines, but is looking more and more like it was a person who killed them. And it's very unsettling for her. It sounds really disturbing. So here is the first line, and it's going to be a brutal one. I just saw a word, woo. Another sheep, mangled and bled out, her innards not yet crusting, and the vapors rising from her like a steamed pudding. That is disgusting, and I would say it's a 5-star first line. Why is the sheep dead? Also, I don't really want to know more about the details, but I have a feeling we're going to know a lot about the details in this book. Sounds brilliant. Okay, moving on to the last book that Barry got me, and this is the most beautiful book that I own. Maybe the most beautiful. Oh my gosh. Things in Jars by Jess Kidd. Oh my God, look at this. The blue and the snails, the gold snails. Whoever knew that a snail could be gorgeous, but here we are, and they are. This follows a woman in Victorian London. Her name is Bertie Devine. She is flame-haired, pipe-smoking, and a detective extraordinaire. And she has to solve her most baffling mystery yet. It is the kidnapping of a young girl named Christabel Berwick. She's a peculiar child who apparently has powers, and she has to find her. It just sounds fabulous. It immediately sounds fabulous. I really enjoy Just Kids writing a lot, so I have very high hopes for this book for sure. Okay, let's read the first line of Things in Jars. Prologue. As pale as a grave grub, she's an eyeful. I really like that first line, but I wouldn't say it's 5 stars. It's very good. I know it's good writing, but it's not 5 stars, you know? Okay, so those are all of the creepy-ish mystery books that I have gotten recently. Let me know in the comments below, were you gifted any scary-ish books for the holiday? I'd love to know if you did and what it was. I hope you guys are doing well, and I will chat with you very soon. Bye, everyone.